Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.
Welcome to Football Now and Then, episode 56. I'm joined today by author and, best of all, Evertonian, Jim Keoghan. Welcome to the show, mate. I've been looking through, to get a few people on as much as possible this week, because obviously it's a very important week for us Blues, as well as it is for the club. I want to start off, before we get into your books and everything you've done for Everton, via your books. Tell me your earliest memory for Goodison Park as a young child.
Well, I think my first game, I think I've been to reserve games before this, but my first kind of proper going to a Saturday afternoon match, it was Kendall's first game in charge against Birmingham City, which I think was 81, I think it was. I just remember being in an incredibly hot day and feeling really excited. And I think there was a lot of excitement in the air because he brought in a lot of new players and it was a fresh start. Everton won, which is always a bonus for the first game. And I can recall just thinking how good this thing was. It's this kind of Saturday afternoon thing where we go with maybe more, I think it's that one. And it felt like something I just wanted to do more often. I think really, it being Everton, it probably gave too good an impression of what Everton is. Actually, that's not what Everton's usually like. It's much more frustrating and disappointing. But actually, it was an incredibly exciting afternoon. And I think I come from a family of Blues. There was no doubt which way I would go. I think those kind of early games, early cemented that sense of affection for the club.
I think for me it was I started my Everton Goodison journey on a normal Everton feat as a loss. I think that was back in, I think it was 96, it was 97, one of them. I think we lost to Tottenham, and I remember Christian Gross was the manager of Tottenham at the time. It was quite a boring game to a point where it was one of them sort of, I wouldn't say fluky, because Tottenham weren't great, but they weren't as worse as, well, I wouldn't say they were as bad as us, back in the mid-90s. But it was a scrappy game and it was a scrappy goal. But it didn't deter me. I was, those days it was teletext or BBC Merseyside Radio to, listen to the game. So you weren't deterred by a loss listening to Everton. I think the whole experience for me was everyone's around and everyone, are feeling the same as you. It's not just me shouting at the telly, teletext obviously, or the radio, you know what I mean? It was 40,000 plus people feeling the same way. So that pushed me into wanting to go as much as possible. So yeah, that for me was, it's like it is for you. It's something that was you're blown away by the atmosphere, and people can write about Goodison atmosphere, but if you've not been there or you've not been there under the lights, it's absolutely different to anything you've ever come across.
Yeah, but I think that is a good phrase. You are blown away by it. That's exactly how it is. When it's really kind of rocking, there's something quite magical. I'm sure that's true of all football grounds and all fans who fall over their clubs, but you can speak as an Evertonian. I think when you go to those games and kind of really look for it, and it's just something just magical about being there.
No, I totally agree. I'm unfortunate this season I haven't been managed to go. Me and Stuart, my co-host, and my cousin, we've been trying, and it's just, I think everyone's got the same idea, haven't they, last season? And yeah, we just haven't been able to, get ourselves to a game. We did do a tour last Wednesday. Weirdly, we've been going since we're kids, and we're both reaching 40 now. We've never ever done a Goodison tour. Which was great, don't get me wrong. The weather was fantastic for it.
Yeah,
I kind of wish we were showing a bit, more of Goodison, around the whole area than just the main stand and everything, from there. You'd like a whole sort of width around the whole ground, but I understand, there's a lot of people doing it on the day, aren't they? So it has to be handed over as quick as possible. But it was a good experience, and I feel like for me and Stuart for that day, it was our goodbye.
Yeah.
But with the whole walkout with Z cars on, I think it said chills. It was something I've always wanted to do as a kid, and it, you know what I mean, you did feel like a kid walking through that tunnel, going up, you know, the stairs towards the pitch, and yeah, it was something I'll always remember. Not saying that, you know, Goodison will still be there from apparent rumours that, well, the news is now, isn't it, the ladies are going to take
Yeah.
the ground. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think, you know, I think obviously they have to kind of adapt it, I guess, to the women's team, because I'm not sure they're going to sell out 38,000 people. But yeah, some form of Goodison to remain with the club. I think that would be kind of the perfect solution, wouldn't it? Because as much as you need to move to new ground, you still have that heritage and that history of Goodison and people's memories, and, you know, it's a huge part of their lives. So if they can stay there in some form, and at the same time act as a kind of a boost to the women's side, and you know, and also be a kind of a commitment of Everton to women's football. Kind of, it could be a league by saying you've given them a proper ground. So it's yeah, ideally, yeah, that'd be fantastic. And then we can have, then, you know, if you kind of want to get back in, you can still get to Goodison, can you?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you'd feel. I know obviously it's great for the ladies, as you said. I don't know how you'd feel going back, you know, knowing that obviously the men aren't there anymore. Would it? I don't know. Would it feel strange in a way?
I don't know.
No.
I think it's 11, isn't it? I mean, I watched the women's team once. Yeah, I live in South East, and they played Lewis in the FA Cup. And you know, you think, oh, it's not the men's team, and you go down there. As soon as you see people playing blue in the Everton shirts, you just forget. And kind of, I think you're that good at watching an Everton team. You're just into it.
I haven't gone and seen Bramley Moore yet. I've said to Stuart, I kind of like, you know, we were going to sort of walk round, but then I thought I want to save that for like the first game. Obviously, I've seen videos and pictures, but you know, it's different with your own eyes. I thought, like, you know, I don't know what Stuart's thinking, but mine was like, I'd rather go there for the first time, and it being the first time and experience it as, you know, all brand new.
I think that makes. Well, I suppose you kind of doing that, you get to see it with a game as a proper ground.
Yeah.
A proper Everton game, you then get to see exactly what it's going to be like. I guess the test events. I know Dad went to one of the test events. He said it's good and the ground's amazing, but it's not. You know, it's not watching it. You know, it's a scaled down Everton game really as watching the kids. So I think it'd be a very different experience when it's properly full and you've got Everton out there and we are fully established and moved. I think you get a real taste of what kind of ground this will be.
Yeah, you are hoping that, you know, that we do bring the atmosphere from Goodison to Bramley Moore. I'm hoping obviously that's the case, and obviously it enhances with the measly 52,000. I say 52,000 because I think we could have easily gone higher than 52,000 for that stadium. I think that's probably the only, you'd say, tarnish of moving to this ground is we probably could have done 60 as a start.
Yeah, possibly, but I think it can increase quite with if you bring in a safe stand and you've got the flexibility to get a few more fans in there. I think, but it's you're right though. They probably could have done more, but the fact that you've got it done, I think is amazing. You think of kind of how many false dawns we've had over the years. The fact that amazingly, with our kind of meager finances, we've somehow got through this and actually built a ground. Because, you know, certain points over the last 30 years, we're thinking that's never going to happen. So many kind of, you know, nearly and things fall through, or ideas before that were just wrong. You think here we are, we've finally done it as a club, without destroying ourselves in the process. Well,
you know, we haven't got the Tesco's debacle, or I can't say anymore because I work for Tesco, so they might shoot me if I say anything. But you know, Kingstock, you know, I mean, I remember that very clearly as well, and that looked like a beautiful ground. If it, you know, if it was come to fruition, as you said, unfortunately, we had a lot of false dawns. But you know, here we are now, and we're one game away to saying goodbye to the only sort of home we've ever known, and it's had its ups and downs. It's punched you in your chest a few times, and it's dragged emotions out. I don't think any of us have ever had, or even known that we even had them before. It's a special place, and you know, and I'm sure that Bramley Moore, when we go there, and you know, everyone's saying it's seated, or as you say, standing as well, will bring the atmosphere of Goodison, but it'll be more more sort of organic as well, because everybody's there and more people that can be there, and as you say, standing, and I don't know, it's hard. It's hard for me because I haven't seen it properly. I've only seen obviously pictures and videos and stuff. So I mean, I can visualize Goodison because I've been there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm obviously excited, to see the ground itself eventually. God knows when I'll be able to get a ticket for that. So that's going to be a hard sticking point. But hey ho, I'll get there eventually. I want to stop now. Obviously, talk about your forte. You're an author. I've got a few pictures of a few of your work. So I need to go through it. How did you become an author? What was that something that you always wanted to be, or was it something you sort of fell into?
Well, I've been writing for uh, about 25 years. I think it's been kind of freelance writing, and then I kind of doing like football writing as well as kind of part of it. And then it was about 2014 I wrote the book. I kind of fell into it, just sort of got into the story of Wimbledon, kind of the modern day AFC Wimbledon, the modern version of the club.
Right.
And they're kind of just kind of what amazing story that is to be able to come from to be abandoned by football to start essentially a park team, so right up the pyramid, and end up in the league, same league as the team that kind of left. From that, I wrote a book on support ownership called From Football, which looked at this kind of incredible organic movement that we have in this country, which is a remarkable story of fan-owned clubs, right up the pyramid, right up until I guess up to League One. You've got these amazing examples of kind of the most kind of comprehensive, I guess, illustration of fan power in this country, and it's been a real success story in England. We kind of grew from nothing, and it's a viable alternative to the normal model ownership. And I just enjoyed that process of writing a book and getting stuck into it every day. And I thought, well, I am an Evertonian first and foremost, so why not do this on my own club? So I did one after that. I did Highs, Lows, and Bakayokos, which was kind of Everton in the 90s, which I think it was kind of a formative decade for me. I was like a teenager, and when you're a teenager going to match, it's different. It's when you're kind of a kid and when you're older. It's also, I think, a massively important decade for Everton. It creates the modern Everton. I think we go into that decade with one of the big four recent champions on the back of a century of being part of the elite, and then we leave it off the pace and we never get that back. And so kind of use that book to explore like what happened, why did Everton essentially fuck up so completely that decade, and also I think it created the modern Evertonian, that sense of frustration that a lot of us feel and have. Sometimes a kind of slight intolerance of the club. I think that kind of emerged in that decade. And also I think a lot of us, the early 90s, the attendance has been great. I think a lot of people were sort of drifting. I think they came back, I think, after Wimbledon in bigger numbers with a different energy, and I think we can still feel that now. But it's the 90s was weird. In one way the club fell off the pace and became a different version of Everton. At the same time, I think we got a more kind of animated, slightly angrier fan base. I think we made it that decade. So that was kind of my first Everton book, and since then I've written 4 more, and I've just picking different parts. I've done Everton greatest games. I've done Everton number 9s. I've done a kind of more general history of the club, and I've done a kids book as well.
I think. There you go. That's the one you obviously speaking about there. Race games. I didn't like title under the pictures because they're so small and it's trying to pick the right one we're talking about.
Yeah.
No, we'll leave it on that one because it's like a mixture of all the things in that for you. Just getting our faces a bit though, doesn't it? Well, I've got them singly here, so I'll just pop them up as we speak.
So there was Everton's greatest games, which is kind of 50 of our finest moments from our kind of history. just kind of match reports, essentially interviews with players and fans, and kind of get their memories of these kind of iconic moments. Then I did Everton number 9, which is kind of 9 of our best number 9s. You look at kind of Dean, Lawton, Dixon, Young, people like that. With everything you want to know about Everton, but what we're afraid to ask, which is more like a kind of just the history of bits and bobs of the club and kind of fandom and that kind of stuff. And then I did If You Know Your History, which is like a kid's version of that previous book, so to give kind of young Evertonians who
This one, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, just kind of first falling in love with the club. Just the guide, really, is kind of what Everton are. So when the kids kind of hear, like, you see the statues outside or the game names from the past, like Nicole being Young Blue, no idea who these people were. You can just go to this book and find out why we have these statues, these pictures around the ground. You have why your mum and dad talking about certain figures with such awe. It's all in there.
Is there anything on the horizon for yourself once the season's done for an Everton book? Have you got anything in mind? That I don't want to obviously use to probably.
At the moment, I've just done a massive piece for 442 on Goodison. This is kind of a big sweep of like looking at kind of the history of Goodison itself, why we've moved, and trying to get a kind of a taste of what Goodison means to people who played there. So obviously to fans who've been going to years, just kind of try and kind of, isn't it, 2000 there, to try and kind of encapsulate what Goodison is and why it's a loss is so kind of so felt, not just at Everton, but I think in English football as well. You kind of losing something, you're losing these sort of grounds that even the ones that remain, like Old Trafford, and the Old Trafford's not, Old Trafford's past is a completely different animal.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like Anfield anymore. And then plenty of others, Goodison Park, places like that, just really demolished. So kind of you're losing this kind of the pre-Premier League football grounds, kind of the rectangular wooden, that kind of stuff. They're gone and get replaced by these concrete bowls.
Well, yeah, no, I see what you mean, yeah, and it is. I suppose I didn't look at that kind of logic of, all these sort of newer sort of style grounds that are coming in, that we are losing the sort of old school. Everyone who's ever been to Goodison will tell you how old school it is. Everyone loves those wooden seats that we have around the ground, and but the atmosphere of an old ground. It just seems. What kind of place the word here? It's not ruthless per se, but I suppose it's ruthless for the home supporters. It's like you're going to war, aren't you? And sort of the grand old lady itself comes alive, and it's hard, isn't it? Because West Ham, when they moved from Upton Park and they went to Bowling, it wasn't they were like a shell of themselves. It didn't sound like they were when they were at Upton Park.
I think it's I think they're unfortunate. I think because it was the way it was built, it wasn't built for.
Yeah, it was quite far away.
My father was West Ham fan. He still hates football. It's very difficult to kind of conjure up an atmosphere there. It's so big, you're so far from the pitch, and I think even ones that have been built with football in mind, sometimes to go to like places like Brighton, and the atmosphere can be great. There are times when it's awful. So I think there's kind of, like I was saying about Bramley Moore, you hope that whilst obviously Evertonians will try and transfer the atmosphere themselves, you hope they've been built in such a way that will kind of make that process easier. I think they've really given that plenty of thought. I think the way the ground's been structured, the way that massive bang down goal. So like hopefully it will suffer from that sense of kind of, it's kind of a soulless. You also might like London Stadium, and it does feel soulless in a way that Upton Park couldn't. So it's some of these you're losing them, and that's why I feel like it can go to places like Goodison or Creighton Cottage, places that do still feel like old football grounds. I guess whilst they're quite common elsewhere in the pyramid, in the higher reaches, less and less of them are surviving. And if they do survive, they're often kind of massacred as a whole recognition.
And it's a shame, because I think you look back and we talked about it briefly, didn't we, the False Dawns, that we never sort of got to grow with Goodison itself. You know, obviously there's a lot of houses around it, and I wouldn't want us to do what the arseholes across the road did. You know, and I wouldn't say they kicked them out the houses, but they built houses and moved them. Well, yeah, but I wouldn't think that we're a club that would do that. You know, and especially how many people have lived on L4 and stuff like that for how many years? You know what I mean? Their whole lives, to some of them, and it'd be wrong to do so. But like I said, it would have been nice if we could have, and obviously, it wasn't the case. And I'm thinking right now, Jim, we pretty much in the top flight probably have the oldest old school ground, though, haven't we? So
yeah, well, I think we have like the oldest purpose-built ground. I think amongst kind of the elite of the game. I guess you could say that we have the Premier League and maybe the top 10 in the Championship.
Yeah,
it's probably the last remaining one of that stature and that size. I mean, maybe Villa Park as well. So it's unfortunately though, you look at the kind of the mechanics of it and the kind of the finances, and Goodison has definitely, as much as you love it, it's held everything back over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Part of the reason, it's not the only reason, and obviously the club being badly managed as well, but it's part of the reason why we've fallen behind a lot of former peers, because we have remained essentially the same as we were. You think when the Park End was built, or like 1994, Goodison has pretty much remained the same since then. Which is, a lot has changed in this football over that time, and we remain kind of, just in stasis effectively. I think the amount of revenue we must have lost over that time compared to other teams, it's what difference that could have made to us in our kind of our ability to catch them up. So it's definitely sad, and the weekend's going to be emotional. But I think if you have any hope of Everton ever winning trophies or catching up with the likes of Liverpool or United or Arsenal, then it's obvious, isn't it? It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, well, yeah. We do have to grow up per se, don't we? Because we've stood still for so long, as you say, and the football has changed so quickly. We see with Chelsea when Abramovich come in, and then City got their owners, didn't they? And everything from at the beginning it was fourth, and then nothing else was there. Now Sky have added 7 now, so I suppose it's the top 7. Could be the top 15 in a couple of years for Sky. But yeah, we have stood still, and I suppose when you look back and think we should have done something about it. I'm not saying that Bill Kenwright wasn't trying. He obviously didn't have the money. What could have been, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
we managed to.
Yeah, definitely. I think we sort of I think we took our eye off the ball. I think the one. It's going back to the 90s again. Everything had been going pretty well for 100 years, and we sort of took our eye off the ball during the decade, and it was the worst time to take your eye off the ball. And kind of the rest of the sport really professionalised, and teams like Arsenal, Liverpool, Man U powered ahead. I think we were just sloppy. I think we fell off the pace there, and then we never really had like I said, we never had the money to really kind of bring in the right investments. And again, there was several false dawns there, Brendan, as well. And it's we were never able to kind of just make the right decision at the right time to kind of try and close the gap. And it's I think that the frustrating thing now is maybe 20 years ago you were saying, we'll try and catch up with United, Liverpool, Arsenal. And then 10 years later, you're thinking, well, you're also City, Newcastle, Spurs. And now, everyone's thinking, well, the first thing you've got to do is try and catch up with teams like Brentford, Brighton, and Fulham. Teams that we would have once have thought, way beneath us.
Yeah, agreed.
Bournemouth even, it's that's that kind of first step now for this club. Can we right ourselves and become more used with money and time? Kind of get it back competing with teams who, a generation ago, we'd have thought would have done. And that's how far we've fallen.
And that is more, I think, the more sort of impacting, painful thing to look at really is how, I mean, we can talk about the ground, we could forever holding us back, but as you said, from Moyes when we first had him at the team, he had a longer time, didn't he? So a slower approach to build the team, and what he did build was a solid group of team, and they worked together, and and I think more of it is the harmony and it's every player he brought in just seemed to fit in. Well, not every player, there was a few.
Not this, yeah.
Yeah, you never going to get them right every time.
No.
But, and after that, we had the false storm with Roberto because he had Moyes' defence and he added a bit of flair to it. And it probably helps that you have Lukaku at front for you. And I still argue to this day with people, other fans of other clubs, and they'll say like, Everton had their best of Lukaku. Yeah. Like I feel like we had the best of Arteta, but obviously, you wanted to win things, and Arsenal, it was an understandable move. But going back to Everton and how far bad got is, the whole Mashiri thing, and you can go back to that very day in February when it got announced, and no one can lie, we all were excited. We were about to go shopping in a more expensive supermarket other than Aldi for once. But we just, I don't know who thought certain players were worth the money or even worth looking at, and as you say, everyone else, Brighton, Brentford, they're all looking at us to think, right, we need to be the next Everton, and how do they get where they are? And now I'm looking at Brighton, and this is me personally now thinking, why didn't we adapt that model?
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty of clubs. I think we've become like a masterclass in how not to run a football club. You must now look at everything, well, that's what you don't do. But, what you do, I think it's that kind of smart recruitment that doesn't cost the air, which actually, as you mentioned, Moyes was great at. I mean, he didn't get it right all the time, but no manager does. You think of the kind of the bargain basement players he brought in, like Baines, Howard, Jagielka, Cagle, Teta, Pienaar, players who cost next to nothing. And he forged that thing. He forged the team that was almost breaking up in some of his parts. And you said they were likeable, they made sense. Everything about Everton, it made sense. And, we didn't have the money to really compete, but with what we had, it was done really well. And then obviously, what's followed is just being an absolute disaster, kind of just spending without thinking and doing the exact opposite of what Moyes did. So I guess the hope is now you've got someone like him back, and he's proven, not just once but twice, he can take a club of our size and kind of get them competing in kind of around the top 8. That with a bit of money and a bit of stability. I think that's kind of, I think a lot of Evertonians think that the last few years have just been, the last 3 or 4 seasons have been so horrible. So there's so much instability, not knowing, not just kind of relegation worry, but also worrying if the club will even survive. I think just to have some breathing space for the next few seasons, like new ground, less debt, hopefully the FFP things are sorted out. You've got a manager who will probably, you can never tell, manager, but probably get as competitive and get better shape. And just give ourselves a few seasons where you haven't got that kind of blind panic every weekend. You look on your shoulder at kind of the bottom 3.
And that was, as you're right there, the blind panic was, sorry, I got my legs stuck to myself then. The blind panic was like every game pretty much, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even, and I'll say that Dyche, he did what he did, and you're thankful for, keeping us up, but, it was more the players, I think, and as like the ground that were dragged pretty much everything through as much of, relegation battles we've had in the last couple of years than I'd say any manager that we've had. But the games under Dyche, and especially if we talk about coming into this season, they were woeful to a point that I never turn a game off, right? Even if we were getting battered 10-0, say, for example, I'd still see it to the end because that's the way I was raised as an Evertonian, no matter what. We stayed at games at Goodison Park, when Newcastle or Man United in the 90s, early 2000s were absolutely wallopers. And my uncle who took us would be like, nope, we stay to the end. And that's reminisced with me. But this season, I really contemplated turning it off.
Yeah. I mean, the way, even when you won, it wasn't enjoyable. It wasn't like, I know football is not just about being entertained. I know it's about winning. I think.
Yeah.
And you can win ugly, and that's fine. But I think you have to be a little bit entertained. I mean, I think you have to go there thinking, I might be something's going to happen today that's exciting. I think sitting towards that kind of death spiral before he was sacked, and he just couldn't score a goal. He barely mustered a chance. He thinking, not only are we losing, but we're also boring, really boring to watch. I felt like he ran out of steam in the end. Right? I think he kind of came in, he did what he does. And he got his more robust, and he navigated that point production season pretty well. I think we all appreciate him for that, even though it contained the worst run for any Everton manager in our history.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're part, but then after that, this season, it's just, I mean, I have seen some shite over the years at Everton, and that must be up there with amongst the worst football I've seen. Just joyless football, and you couldn't. I think before you start, I thought this season was an on-one go. I think the other season you think, oh, we'll probably be okay putting enough about us to get through it, but this, you watch that football, you thought if he stays, it's going to be really tight.
Yeah, I think he would have taken us down, if I'm honest. If he stayed, towards the end of the season, then it wasn't a David Moyes that came and rescued us again. And I'll say this now, Jim. He wasn't my first choice when Dyche went, and I've always had the feeling of never go back. But obviously,
who's your first choice then?
What, to take over?
Yeah, who you preferred? Yeah.
I wanted is it Eden Tarsvik? Because he's been and coached him in I think was it wasn't Brentford, was it Bournemouth? I don't know. One of them, or maybe it was Palace. But he's coached in this country, before he became a manager. So I mean, for me, it's like he's got he knows the idea. He knows, the Premier League, and it wasn't just throwing some random person again, like a Ronald Koeman who really didn't want to be at Everton. Let's be honest. And I mean, he did really well in Germany, and I thought he was a natural fit because he is quite, more open to doing different things and just defending. My ideology is like we make a plan of how we're going to go, and right, we're going to play this formation, and then we're going to get this style of players, and we build upon. Then you do like the Brighton-esque. You go over different countries and you pluck out a young lad who's got so much hype behind him. Next big thing, put him in reserves, send him out on loan, and then bring him back, sell him on.
Yeah.
But David Moyes has made me eat my own words, so I'll accept that, and I'll happily take that he's done that. Yeah. And it's mad that he's come in with the same set of players.
Yeah.
Only with Alcaraz is the only player that he's brought in. Yeah. But it's the same set of players, but he took the shackles off.
Yeah, he did.
You saw the difference. Jai, was a completely different player, an absolute different player, a different animal, should we say?
Yeah. I didn't think Moyes would be this good. I thought he'd get us kind of over the line.
Yeah.
I thought he'd be, still struggling later on the season, but actually, the turnaround. I know we've drawn a lot of games recently, but actually the turnaround is amazing. You think of something like the weekend, they're 1-0 down, not playing well. I think you're mentally conditioned by the last few years to think we're obviously not getting back into this game.
Yeah, I had that. Yeah.
And actually, to kind of bounce back like that in such a kind of un-Everton way within the context of the last few years, to kind of just suddenly emerge after the break and dominate. I mean, that's Dyche would lose that game, obviously.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
You're thinking it's just like I've forgotten what it feels like to be like surprised by Everton. It's a lovely feeling to kind of you play teams like we beat Spurs, thinking I didn't see that coming. We back to Leicester, when that happens,
Yeah.
it's and like you go to Forest and you get a win, thinking you look at all these fixtures. When Dyche is in charge, you're thinking, well, that's going to be a stink, and we might get a point there, and it's going to be ugly. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden, things are happening that are very, very un-Everton of late. And it's like going back to saying like Dyche was unenjoyable to watch and just joyless. There's a sense of, I wouldn't say joy there's still Everton, but there's a sense of kind of like excitement that you're going to see something on Saturday or something, that it's going to kind of emotionally engage you in a way that isn't just pure dread. So it's been a really welcome surprise at how. So I was unsure when Moyes came in. I thought like as you said, don't go back and now we've done well with West Ham, we haven't done well with Sunderland, and it's a bit too similar to Dyche, and you're gonna get more kind of. But actually, I mean, who knows what happens next? But this, since it's been in, it's been great, hasn't it? Really.
I think, and it has been. And you saying then about David Moyes, like being, at Real Sociedad, he went to United after us and tried Sunderland, and I suppose between Sunderland and Sociedad, it was. Well, I wouldn't say United actually, because I think he was unfortunate to get sacked.
Yeah, hard job too, isn't it? Massively.
Yeah. But he did have a massive downfall.
Yeah.
And then he appeared at West Ham, and I don't think they give him enough credit at West Ham.
No.
The first season he saved them, and then they, see you later, and then they drag him back. He gets them sorted up for the second season. The first season he comes back, sorry, and they get away from relegation again. Next season they're in Europe, and he goes and wins a trophy. And I was like, I was chuffed for him because he tried so hard with Everton.
Yeah.
Whether he's here the first time round, and it was disappointing because you would have thought the players we had that we should have won something.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, but I was so happy for him that he's going to win a cup, and then they throw him out the door again. And
weird.
And you
really
look at
weird.
the two
weird.
managers now that they've had since Moyes, and they're below us, and they've spent a lot more money.
Yeah, I mean, I think they put this thing. I know, and you put another put back to like the West Ham way. They're obsessed with kind of how they played in the 70s and want kind of sexy football. But if you've had a trophy drought like they have, and you get a manager who comes in and then there is a European trophy and gets you competing from the top of the table and into European competitions. When in recent memory you've been fighting relegation and gone down quite a few times, I did not understand the hate. I know it doesn't always produce the most kind of free-flowing football, but like he got them competing, he got them winning stuff, like actual trophies, and they just turned on him. Well, not all of them, but a significant proportion absolutely turned on him, and I did not understand it. As somebody, as a blue, who would love a trophy and would love in Europe.
I'd sell my children for a trophy now, Jim.
Exactly, and not being kind of fighting relegation, you're thinking.
Yeah.
The memories are so short because they were up and down club, weren't they? West Ham, they were relegation fodder at times, and he made them look serious again. And as you said, since then we spent a bomb. We brought in the sexy football manager, that was a disaster. And we brought in the young kind of possession coach, and so far, I mean. Early days, in fairness.
Yeah, of course. Because
he's not had a window, he's not had a pre-season.
No.
They're not good. So it's sometimes it's be careful what you wish for, isn't it?
Yeah, we were all clamouring for it. Well, not all of us. I wouldn't have minded Graham Potter at the time because you got to look at what he did for Brighton. And okay, De Zerbi put it up a notch, but then you look at De Zerbi now at Marseille, and it's fallen flat for him. But again, as you say, football's a weird thing, isn't it? You can be amazing 1 minute with this club, you feel like you're progressing, and But what I think with David Moyes is, we go back to every club he's been to before. He came back and after he left us, and that's a lot of experience and a lot of ups and downs. There's low points, being relegated to Sunderland. Trying it in Spain, which most British managers will tell you doesn't really work.
Yeah.
But, we had the guile to go and try it.
Yeah.
And Sociedad is such a weird team as it is anyway.
Yeah.
They operate so different to a lot of teams do in La Liga. But, there you go. You give it a go. It didn't work. As you say, West Ham took a chance on him. And I think he proved them completely wrong. But, as we've said, they said thanks for the cup, but goodbye. And I suppose their loss is our gain.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's kind of I think he's what you want now. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily, 3 or 4 years down the line.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, what we need is, I guess, a period of sanity. As just as fans, I think we need to navigate this move well. We have to be competitive again. No one's saying we have to be top 4. That's probably unrealistic. But I think we need to feel like we're not going to a season feeling relegation. We need to feel like we're going to beat teams, especially those around us. And I think I just want a breather. I think I just want a couple of seasons where Everton are okay. I don't want the end. I think he's the kind of manager who can deliver that, whilst at the same time laying the foundation for something to build on in the future, and then see where we are in a couple of seasons now.
Definitely, and I hope, like, as you say that, you try and sort of envision it in your head, and it's like, please, can we get it right this time?
Yeah.
But with the Friedkins coming in, and I think it was chief executive started today, didn't he? Angus, is it Angus? Yeah, it's Angus. Yeah. And I know a lot of Leeds fans were quite happy to see him go, but again, it might be completely different under us. But I'd like to think that they get it right this time, and we don't go off kilter and allow these players for one manager, go for a different style manager. You know what I mean? And we've all seen it, and it's just an absolute mess. And there's a few clubs that are all going through that themselves now. Man United has been one of them, and they've spent a hefty amount of money. And you understand how they feel, but obviously you can't really talk to a United fan because they just despise us as it is anyway. So, I ignore most of that. But, looking forward, I am excited again. And I do feel like we've got over that line of shitness now.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that's kind of, you feel like it's a fresh start, and you feel like it's all kind of, it's new ground, it's new owners. It's a relatively new manager. Obviously he's got Chris Julian, who's been there for half a season, but you feel like we go there. I think the kind of financial fair play stuff seems to be.
I think that's boxed off a bit now, isn't it?
It feels like it's on, even if it's still an issue. It's not like it was. We were massively constrained, so I think we can spend a bit. Because you look back really, I think the last 3 seasons, you look at kind of Everton's, 4 seasons now. Look at Everton's spend. And it's a miracle that we've remained at the miracle. I think the only positive net spend over the last 5 years. We're more like a championship club in how we kind of spend money. So we've been living off fumes, I think, for the last few years. Loan deals and pay now, a bit now, get a bit later, and that kind of stuff. And it's
Delroy, wasn't it?
Yeah, and a really small squad, so a few injuries, and you've had it. And it's from bare bones, just about straight through. So if you've done that with next to nothing, then you hope that with a bit more cash, and hopefully, people who look at the previous regime and say, well, that's obviously not what we do. We're going to chop and change everything, bring in better football, competing people, buying players, and just kind of plan properly.
Yeah,
it's football. You never know. You can do everything right, it's not all wrong, but hopefully you've got that template from this year to say, well, that's exactly what we don't do. We trust managers for a bit more. We have a proper transfer policy. We don't buy things like playing centre. We don't overpay. You think of what we spent on players in the last.
Sigurdsson, I think, is probably the most. I don't know, because he's the most one we spent on, but we got played like an absolute fiddle.
Yeah. just, I mean, players like Toffees.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, we spent a bomb on crap, and we're giving people insane wages. I think someone was saying, Michael Keane saying like £40 million in wages.
Well, since he's been at the club.
Yeah, I know them
Wow.
taking the week and thinking, he's never been good. He's never been.
No, it's like Bambi on ice when Michael Keane's at the match.
I think he's been there through the whole pretty much since was it Cream reporting in to the whole machinery project. He's earned tens of millions and never warranted his place for him. So you're thinking,
He did score some bangers though, Jim.
Yeah, it's still even though he did that.
I'm not advocating for him to stay for that. No.
Yeah, just some mistakes he's made. I mean, he has one good game in 5.
But I've been 1 in 10. You've been a bit too kind there, if I'm honest.
Being very kind to him. You think stuff like that. I mean, you've not just massively overpaid in transfer. You've also partly spent. There's no tomorrow time or rain. So you hope that it's Everton, so we're always going to make new mistakes, but you'd hope and say, can't do that again.
Yeah, and it's like if say Nonto's been there, and I don't want Nonto. I mean, when we were trying for him originally, I wasn't keen on him, but I know obviously pace is what we need. But there's far better players in Europe that you can get who do much better than he does for cheaper. Yeah. It's a case of looking. But I'll use him for example. It's they wanted this and we wouldn't pay in that. When it's the time to walk away is when you offer, I feel like, a fair deal, and they're like, no, we want 30-40 million. Yeah. And that's the time you go, no, you're right, see you later.
Yeah.
Because it's, we go down that route again and you're overpaying for players that, let's be honest, are either bottom club sort of players or the championship players.
Yeah, we have
the odd one we did get that did work, which again you're looking maybe 4, if I'm being honest, maybe.
Which 4 do you reckon? Pickford.
Yeah, well, definitely Pickford, and I'd say DCL before, all the crap that this is going on with his contract, and now is you're looking like he wants a U-turn. I'll talk about him in a minute because I've got my feelings on that. But Jake O'Brien, I think, it's been a really, really solid signing, and for a big guy playing at right back. To be honest with you, he's looked really good. He actually looked better at right back than he did when he moved into the centre. Also, I think bringing back Garner Gay was a really, really good one, and an astute signing because I think he's been our best player this season.
He's been great this season,
and the guy's reaching his latter age of 30s. I'll beat him to it, but you see players starting to slow down. You see their legs start going. He doesn't seem like he's losing anything at all. Yeah, and he's running around the pitch more than James Garner, but James Garner's not that type of player, really. But yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, I've said 4, haven't I? Those would have been like one to stand out. I wouldn't go further back because Sandro was all hype.
Yeah, Richarlison's good.
Oh yeah, sorry, Richie. Yeah, and then obviously the rumours of him coming back, and I don't want to sound disrespectful to Richarlison because what he did for us, but I'd have to say no to that too.
Yeah,
just because injuries, and I think if I'm honest, Everton probably fucked him in that last season. He stayed because he was playing with all sorts of injuries, painkillers here, and literally put everything out there for Everton. And I love him for that, and I think we all will. But I don't want him back.
I agree. I think your heart says but your head says
no.
You think of this season. You think of how long we've spent with forwards injured. Cavalier out for a big chunk of the season. Brozier was being cropped most of it. Chinity 2/3 of the season. We don't need another forward player who's going to miss 2/3 of the season. Even though on his day he could still do it with Richarlison, but it's few and far between. We need players who are going to give us, 30 odd games a season.
Yeah, an extra gear, isn't it? I think we saw that on Saturday, and moving Alvarez into the number 10 spot, which that is where it is. That's where he's happy with, and you saw the difference then. And I'm not keen on McNeil being on the right, but I think at the moment it's just giving game time, isn't it? And having him Alvarez and Ndiaye, in the same team. But it's having players like him and Ndiaye who can turn up and do something like that. When it's, me and Rob are losing, or it's a really stale 0-0 or 1-1, and one of them can come on and change the game like that.
Isn't it nice to have a bench? All the games we've had keepers on the bench.
Yeah.
So that exactly, you bring on two creative players, suddenly it's a different everything. Thinking, we've gone through decent season. When you look at our bench and think, there's nothing. You can't even bring on a game change. Yeah, you can't. There's no game changes. There's maybe a couple of like for likes. There's just nothing there. So kind of, I guess that's again part of the rebuild. It's not just about bringing in players who are going to improve the first 11. It's making sure we've got a squad of players who are inevitably when you get injured or you need to or form goals, you need that larger squad, which we've not had for like 4 seasons.
Well, no, we haven't, have we? And again, we've not even used our youth system, and that's another thing that's I think for a lot of us is frustrated is that I know Harrison Armstrong's come through now and he looks like he's going to be a very good player. I still think he needs another loan. I wouldn't want him to stay next season and stale. I think Schmidt's the same, needs a loan.
Yeah.
But I said this to Stu when we talk about it when we were up at Goodison on Wednesday. It's like I'd send them to championship level teams, not Europe, because they're not going to learn as much. They should go championship and learn that way, because no other leagues are like British leagues, and you're never going to learn the sort of rough and tumble of how the pace of the game. Maybe it's a bit slower in the championship, but I'd say it's a lot more energetic and hard.
Physical.
And, but these are how they learn. And I want to see our youth system get better, and I want to see better players coming through the ranks. We haven't seen anything for a long time, and we keep hold of them too long. And but by the time they leave Everton's youth system, they're too old. Yeah, then their career's pretty much gone. I felt sorry for Luke Garbett. I think he was 24, turning 25 when he left us, and we've just ruined his career pretty much holding on.
We think like a team of Everton staff should be bringing through, over the course of the last 20 years, we've kind of brought through Barkley, Rooney, and Tom Davis, who kind of
Vaughan, Nietzsche, and
we've got like first team players thinking that it should be. I know it's difficult nowadays because all the big clubs move up all the times, but we should be bringing through. In the last 10 years, we've brought through Tom Davis. Right? As a team player, you're thinking that's not something's wrong with that one. I know a lot of youth players don't make the grade, but a team like Everton with our resources should be bringing through more than one player.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? And I feel like we did Tom Davis dirty as well. I think we didn't put enough time into helping him build, because we didn't even play him in his position. What was his position? I don't even know what his position is now.
I think it was a hard time. So he came. The thing is hard to break through when it's the strongest turmoil. I think you're a young player and you fight relegation and chopping changing managers. The environment wasn't good either, was it?
No, ultimately, he broke through, and I think everyone had him at that standard. Then this from the City game, didn't they? And then pretty much. We had that one good season with Koeman, and then after that, we nosedived.
Yeah.
They grew a beard, and what happens when they grew beards together?
Everything was awful. And so kind of, we sort of got lost slightly, didn't we?
I'm going to go to the players that are leaving now, because obviously we mentioned Calvert-Lewin. I want to get obviously your perspective on this, but I'll give you mine first. And I've been blown away by Beto. I've actually fallen in love with Beto now. Because I thought he was a Stracolosi type player, all heart, but nothing else. But I feel like Moyes has done something to him, instilled something in Beto, where you're playing to his game now. He's not a hold the ball up guy. We know he's got control like flipping butter, but you put him through. he's going to score. Okay, he's missed a few good chances, and I think he's probably shit his pants a few times.
Yeah.
You know, I think because he's so desperate to make an impact and he wants to do so well and play for us and do everything. I've quite enjoyed it, and I thought he was an absolute handful against Leeds. Hold on about that'll be next season, when it? No, maybe he might even go there. No, he was a handful for Fulham. Sorry.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And that was the type of player that he wasn't before.
Yeah, definitely. I think something's happened to him. I mean, I suppose the first thing is he's had game time, hasn't he? Rather than, giving him 60 days off or 20 at the end, the game's gone. He's been given a proper, through circumstances, he's been given a proper run. And you're right, his hold-up play is lacking for at times. He doesn't stick to him. I don't think he's a sort of player. Whether that can be coached into him, I don't know. But he seems to be better off the shoulder, running onto balls.
That's it, yeah.
And I suppose a lot of it will depend on what Moyes wants from his team, because if he wants a player, at the moment he's got a player who can hold the ball up in Calvert-Lewin and who doesn't score goals, really.
Yeah.
And a player who can't hold the ball up but who can score goals. So he's either going to want to buy somebody who can do both, I think, or he's going to want to adapt how he plays to one of those two players, because they, combined they're a great centre forward, they're a perfect centre forward.
Yeah. I was about to say that.
One can do what one can't do, and that kind of stuff. So it's I think it's going to be an interesting kind of dilemma for him. Do you bring someone new in? Do you keep the two that you've got? I don't know. A lot of it, I guess, will depend on how much money you've got. Because there are other areas that fit too, aren't there?
I was going to get to that as well.
Think of our kind of right side, how little production has been there in terms of goals.
Yeah.
You need pace, I think, in the team. You need cover.
Yeah.
We need
left back cover.
Left back cover. You need a young right back, not people who are kind of 40 plus. So it's we need another centre half, probably need another midfielder. So I think it depends how much of a pity there is, and realistically how much forwards cost. And because a decent forward can eat into your budget quite a lot. So it's but I think I'm similar better. I thought he was just chaos.
Absolutely.
He's just going to cause problems. A bit like in my ass. You might score a goal, but you might not mean it. And it's like, it's that kind of stuff. And just be a handful. But yeah, he's certainly under more. He's shown there's more to him than just that. And he's he scores goals. If he played the whole season at the rate,
I think he had more than 10.
Yeah, I mean, he'd probably be on. He might be like 14 this season, which by Everton standards of late is
that's good.
Exactly. Yeah, it's So yeah, I don't know. You can't guess what money will do. It's at least he's got like an option now. At least he's got 4 scoring goals. That's available to him. It's just whether he wants to play to his strength.
So we're going to go to Calvert-Lewin now, because obviously that was the whole initial thing, and then Beto just popped in my head.
Yeah.
Obviously we know that his contract is null and void in a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
It's a couple of I'm right.
Yeah,
it's a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And obviously we've been hearing different conversations coming from the club, and that there's I don't know if it's true or not, but there's a potential U-turn in this. Obviously that could be factors that nobody is interested in Calvert-Lewin elsewhere, or he doesn't. What did he want? Over 100 grand from Newcastle when they were interested last summer, and they were like, no, thank you. I don't know now whether, and this is my opinion now, Jim, and I don't speak for Evertonians. I obviously speak for myself. I don't know whether or not I'd say to him, I appreciate that you want to stay, and I appreciate what you have done when you have played, and and the impact you have made as well. But no, thank you. And now I know a lot of people say, but you're not going to find a player of his style, his sort of quality for 20, 15 million. You're going to have to look 40, 50 million for a half decent striker. But are we really going to give more money to a wages to a player that can't stay fit in hasn't really shown any interest, and I didn't think he really showed much interest when we were in the friendlies at the beginning of the season, and the chances he had in those friendlies were dreadful, and it just was not interested. And all of a sudden now you turn as well. Nobody wants me. I better see if Everton want to keep me still. Yeah. I that to me, the morals of that, it doesn't resonate with me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I just feel like, you know, you could keep Beto and say goodbye to Calvert-Lewin, and then get someone young enough, but it's got the pace maybe and can score a goal, and have him interchange with Beto. But that, again, that's my opinion.
Well, I think it depends. A lot depends how many forwards you want to carry as a club, doesn't it? I mean, if you carry, and I guess you need probably 3.
Yeah, you
maybe
do.
Maybe 3 with a youngster. If you're keeping Schmidt on the books, not letting out, then he's an option. If you can get somebody else in, then you don't need both Calvert-Lewin and Beto. Really, I think that will kind of dictate what we do next, because with Calvert-Lewin, you know, if you take out that purple patch under Ancelotti, you know, one of the greatest coaches to ever manage in, you know, European football. He even made Michael Keane look half decent. That's how good he was. So if you take away that purple patch, actually, Calvert-Lewin's everything he is. Whilst he is great at holding the ball, he doesn't produce. He doesn't score freely. If he's 1-on-1 with keeper, you always back the keeper. So he's not you don't look at him and say, oh, well, you know, even if he stays fit, he's a decent forward. He's not really. So it's, I'd be of the mind. I wouldn't, if you can get somebody in, I think that's kind of the important thing. You've identify somebody and they're interested and you can forward them. I'd be happy with somebody new and better and somebody. Well, if you're loaning Smithy out, only the young forward comes in. I don't think, if we didn't have Calvert-Lewin next season, and we had another number 9 and Beto and a young striker, I think we'd be okay. I don't think he's kind of, I don't really know what he offers. Why? He said he's not going to stay fit. You know, even if he was a better player, he's still missing so much this season. He's only getting older. You know, he's not getting more robust as he ages. So it's I know players kind of, you know, players play team off against each other and that kind of stuff, more the best view of themselves and that kind of stuff. But it's just that, from a kind of practical point of view, I don't know what he offers. I think other people can do it a lot better.
And I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I don't think he's been very good, really, for years.
I think he, as you say, I think the whole Carlo season and his purple patch.
Yeah.
I think that was, you know, obviously it was great, but maybe that was sort of deceiving in a way.
Was that 2020?
Hey?
Was that 2020? 2019-20 season?
When COVID, wasn't it?
COVID, was it 2021 or
2022, isn't it, surely?
Isn't it?
COVID's taking time off us. We can't remember.
So he was trapped under Benitez and Lampard, and then trapped under Lampard and Barry. Like 4 or 5 seasons, 4.5 seasons of like he's either been missing or his good moments have been fleeting. That's a long time for a player to not offer anything to a club. He doesn't seem to be particularly committed, as you say, at times. You know. I think you want players who are going to run through a brick wall and others who are going to be Bill Bust to play money style football. I don't think having that sort of thing.
And I think, you know, since Beto's he's come in, and Calvert-Lewin, obviously he's gone back to his home in Everton's A&E hospital. I think the experiment, if you look at it, and this is how I think now, just say that he's gone now and he never come back. So these last 5-6 months we've been without him, he's not been here, and it's Beto has led the way. I'm proving, do we need Calvert-Lewin? And I don't think we do.
It's a good point, that, yeah.
I think it's proving that, you know, if you play the right things for Beto, he will get you goals. He's a handful, and yes, again, we're going back to the whole his butter legs because he, you know, and you do feel sorry for him because he bloody tries, but he just can't get that ball to stick. But you know, maybe now he's playing more games that they can really focus on, you know, that sort of side of things. You know, especially with David Moyes having a whole pre-season with him, so that could be different.
Good point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and if you can bring in someone else,
yeah,
if you're not reliant on Beto, you bring in someone that someone Moyes might like. Yeah, I think that's a great point. We've had the DCL-less free experiment.
Yeah, we have. Yeah,
Moyes. It's been okay. We've got bad. We're averaging 1.5 points a game, which is
we have. Yeah.
It's over the course of a season that would put you around 7th or 8th, and that's without Calvert-Lewin. So, do you need this person to come in who's basically a sick-mode player who doesn't score goals? Yes, he can win headers, and yes, he can hold the ball up, which is great.
Yeah.
You do need that. But you also need, if you're a number 9, you're meant to score goals. You've got to give us. Will he ever give us 15 a season?
No, and I don't think that'll ever be the case. I think obviously we go back again. Carlo, different world-class manager, one of the best to ever do it. Naturally, some players are going to rise above their ceiling for a player like a manager, like him, and that so happened to be Calvert-Lewin. And after that, he hasn't shown much of anything. He scored the goal here, he scored the goal there, he scored in the derby. And Beto scored in the derby this season as well. And he should have scored at Anfield. But I haven't really thought about Calvert-Lewin at all. And, when he came back the game before the Fulham game and he came on, and I wasn't really interested. And then he came on again, didn't he? A couple of minutes left. He got through one-on-one. Obviously, it was a tight angle, and Leno did run at him. But I've seen Beto score against the Anfield, notice offside in a very similar position. He doesn't have it. Maybe a different team playing a different way, maybe it could benefit him better. But Everton, I don't
think if we have any hopes of kicking on in the next few years, I think you need a forward to at least bring in. You think if you add 15 goals to an Everton season, 10s finishing 14th into maybe finishing 9th or 8th. You need those extra goals. Beto might be the player who can do that. He's certainly scored important goals this season. I don't think Calvert-Lewin is. I think he'll again, a lot of puffing and puffing, and games where he really miss some chances blown. He might get you 5 or 6. And it's not enough. I think we've had that for years with a low scoring team. That's why you end up in the bottom of the table. If you have any hope of being challenging for those European races, you need a forward who can deliver, at least 12 goals, and you need wingers who can. I know Njai's brought in a lot of goals this season, but you can't have someone like Harrison.
I was about to say,
You can't have a winger who brings you the goal. It's just, you can if you forwards banging in 30, but we're not going to have that. So you need, there's 2 areas of pitch there where we just, an additional 7 or 8 goals from a winger, 12, 15 goals from forward. Suddenly it's a very different football team.
Yeah, it is. You're spreading the goals, aren't they, Jim, aren't you then? Like it used to be.
Yeah.
When Pinar's the Cahills, we were very spread out. We did have Andy Johnson, Yakubu's, and they did score Yakubu more than anybody.
Yeah.
But everyone else around him was pitching in as well, where we haven't had that for a long time.
It makes a big difference. I mean, it's more goals, there's more points, isn't it? That's how the league doesn't lie when the teams with the more positive goal difference, the higher up the table. You've got forwards who don't score goals, you've got wingers who don't assist and don't score goals. You're always going to struggle.
I'm also going to go to now. Obviously, that's the striker situation. We are losing a few players as well. I know we're trying our best to keep Idrissa Gueye. I think we're listening to a few people online that he's not undecided yet. But I think that's fair because the man's at a certain age,
Yeah,
and he's literally given Everton, everything he's got, and obviously I think 2 more years left in him, if I'm honest.
yeah,
And then obviously the defence, we're finally saying goodbye to our best mate Keggers. Thank you for the goal on the weekend. But we've got the situation with Bramthwaite. Are we going to go through another summer of, fighting other clubs off to keep him?
yeah,
Um, I think as much as it's exciting, all this change, this summer is going to be a big tell, isn't it? Not more so because of the amount of players that are leaving, that we're going to need to get a similar amount of players back in.
yeah.
But are you all right? I mean, the wingers I think the wingers and central midfield to me is most important because we need pace. I just feel like we are probably one of the slowest teams in the Premier League,
Yeah.
and we need pace. We need end products on those wings a lot more.
Definitely. Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a huge sum, isn't it? Actually, it's not just a case of bringing players, keeping certain players. It's how much can you spend to bring in new faces. Get the feeling there are going to be some players and maybe aren't necessarily crowd favourites. You might still be retained because we just need a bigger squad, and you can't bring in 12 players in a window.
No.
No one does that. It's not good for a team. So as much as we want kind of wholesale change, I think it's going to be a more kind of measured process. I still think we'll have loans. There's somewhere that we've got finances just to kind of go out and splurge. So it's I think you're right. I think the pace, I think he's not as productive. I thought we were better as a team with Lindstrom and Garner. As kind of, we seem to have more about us. And I think, I like James Garner, but I don't think he's necessarily really the long-term answer to Everton's midfield problems. Obviously, Harrison is just
I know where you're going with that one. Yeah,
he just can't produce. He can't score, can't shoot, can't cross.
he's not the same. He's not the same player that came through when Leeds got promoted the first season.
No, I remember watching Harrison. I thought the game when Leeds got relegated a few seasons ago. They were playing West Ham, and Leeds were absolutely dreadful. Harrison was great. Harrison was the only player who looked bothered and trying things. So when he came, I thought, well, there's a player there. I thought he'd do well, but actually, he knows that, doesn't he? Really, he's thinking. He comes off on Saki and we get better. So yeah, I think there's kind of, you're right. There's parts of the pitch where you need kind of new faces, aging, like kind of their priorities there. I think right wing midfield, the right back position needs to be sorted out. It's been a bit of a mess for too long. We've got 3 right backs at the club and nobody.
I was going to say to you about Patterson, Jim, actually, as you just brought him up. Do you feel this is the end for him now? Really? Because you're looking at Ashley Young, and Seamus Coleman has to get a game before, because it's not fair. Because I feel like he's going to announce it. This is me again now. I feel like that announcement for retirement's coming.
Yeah.
And, he should get out of, loyalty and what he's done for us and Everton as himself. He should get the minutes, but if he's picking Ashley Young over Patterson, for me, I feel like maybe that's it for Patterson now.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Moyes had a look at me. He gave him 2 starts recently, and then went back to Young. You're thinking, if you're a young player and you're a fellow who's 39 starting ahead of you, it doesn't look like you've got much for the future. I think, the managers now look at Patterson like he needs to be the biggest player. So it's, I think, it's weird to have 3 right backs at the club and not have a right back. And that's how it feels at the moment. We've got too many right backs but not a right back. So they definitely need, you can't have your right backs being pushing 40.
No.
I thought there's actually going to be in quarters. He's definitely improved this season. That's not sustainable in the long term. So that's another area. I think you need another centre back, don't you? You might need two to lose Bramley, but you certainly need another one to replace Keane. So I think it's going to be a massively important summer with a lot of change, but maybe not as much change as we'd like to see.
Yeah, I don't think. But you're right. What you said before, though, we can't take. This isn't FIFA or Football Manager.
You can't
You know what I mean? And I'm guilty on Football Manager. I do sometimes get too excited when I get given money, and then you realise I've got a load of players that are kicking off now. But you can't go out and buy, or not even buy free transfers, loans, etc. You can't get 12 players in because that's an absolute.
Doesn't work. You think teams that do that? It's disastrous when you bring in like 12 players. It's all over the place. You just do Chelsea, you know what's going on, and I don't think we've got that much money.
No, I don't think we've got as much as we hope we've got.
Yeah. Unless we sell Bramley, then it's a different.
Yeah,
but I hope we don't. I think he's.
No, I was going to say I'd rather us have the less money and get the right players in and keep.
Good. He's such a good. He's the kind of player you build teams around. Not flog a bit. He's so much better within the team. So it's I think it's going to be interesting. But I think unlike recent seasons, it'll also be quite exciting because everything. Recent season, it's all been like bargain basement stuff. And can we afford this person? And are we going to build a decent squad? I think this is the first season we're thinking we should have the ability to put together our best squad for quite some time.
I know, I totally agree with you, and you've got to look at the free market, Jim. Have you seen the amount of players? And I'm not talking about bargain basement players. We're talking about Jonathan David. I know it's a hard sell him, coming to us. But I'm just for example because he's young, and he's got. I'd say a medium ceiling, but still bloody good. I mean, there are players like him floating around on the free market this season. So, if you play the cards right, you could end up actually not spending too much money and getting, some decent players off the free market. And I know that still does cost money. It's not just like,
Yeah, it does. But it's good having this manager who I think has kind of got a track record of operating in the more kind of reasonable end of the market and finding players where you can add value or who are kind of underpriced. He's done that, hasn't he, pretty much throughout his managerial career, not just at Everton. We did it with someone like Jared Bowen. And nobody was really after him. He was a phenomenal player. I think with back Moyes at this stage in our development when we haven't necessarily got loads of funds and we do need to be a bit more careful. He's exactly the kind of manager I think we could navigate this well and kind of find value and build kind of a competent, coherent, a squad that makes sense. We've not had a squad that makes sense for a long time. So kind of different managers and it's nice to have a team where it won't be the best team in the league, but it's like a team you can say, I get what's happening there, I get why we brought in, we play like this, and I think that's I've got faith in Moyes to do that kind of stuff.
Hopefully he goes back to his championship days, when we were picking up some right gems. I know the price is going to be a lot more than it was when he was first here, but there are some really good talented players down in that division are waiting for a team in the Premier League.
It does seem to have an eye. I know he doesn't get it right all the time, but nobody does. It just seems to have a really good eye for the player Moyes. And he's not afraid to go lower down to get them.
And good, and I think it's the right things to do. Last question now, and I'll let you go off because I've had almost an hour and 20 minutes of your time here, Jim. Sunday, obviously, we know what it is. I'm going to ask you for your prediction, and I want to ask about your thoughts and feelings going in to the game, and if it goes the way you want it to go, how are you going to feel afterwards?
Scoreline. It's Everton, isn't it? So you couldn't ask for a better opposition for this game. So a technically an easy win, but it's us.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
so, if somehow we lost the game, you wouldn't go, oh, that's a massive surprise. That's kind of what Everton would do on this massive occasion. I still think Saints are crap. I think the emotion of the day and the atmosphere will be unique. I think maybe that will carry Everton over the line. I think it's hard to know with Everton. You think he always seems to kind of fuck up when it matters. So it's I kind of thinking, in football terms, we're better than Southampton, and it's at home. It doesn't mean much this season, and it's a huge occasion. So surely we'll win the game against a team that bad. So I'm kind of hoping it's just kind of an emotional, free-flowing game. We win like 3-0. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
But after kind of the Ipswich game, you're thinking, how do we blow that?
Yeah, but then you go and see what we did to Fulham. And
I know it's not at home. I mean, it doesn't.
I know.
It's just a weird team. So yeah, I think we'll win. I think we have to win, but it's and kind of emotion. Right, it's just a very strange feeling to think we won't go back to. I've done my last game of Goodison, so it's kind of it's a weird thing to think that even if the women play there, you won't go back to that version of Goodison. It's been a massive part of my kind of not just my life but my family's life. My parents were season ticket holders. My mates went there. Loads of taking my son there. Plenty of times. It's kind of it's loomed large in our family's life. My granddad went. You're thinking over 100 years of association with Goodison. I think that's done forever. No matter how impressive the new ground is, and all the many reasons why you should move, it's still a very strange feeling to think when you won't go up council road, you won't go down a pub down near the cafe somewhere. That's it. You never do it again. So it's I think it's just going to be very weird. I think for those who are looking up to have tickets, I think moving the ground for the final time would be really strange. I think that's to say goodbye to it like that. Which is why you have to win. You don't want to do all that.
Yeah, but as you just said, you know what? We probably jinxed it now, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I'll probably have to drink more beers just to pretend we've won. Obviously, we've the having a bar open for an hour. I would have thought that was going to be a bit longer, but hey ho. I thought because they've got a midday game. We're not in the game of the FA Cup, which again strange why it's not on after the Premier League finishes like it always used to be. And I feel like we're a bigger deal than the fucking FA Cup, and I guess I'm swearing. But
it's modern football, isn't it? They don't really. I mean, it's the timing of this game should have been down to Everton. I think it's the end of the season. The game means nothing at all to anyone else. It does mean something to this club and this set of fans. You'd think the league would say, you know what, it's the oldest purpose-built football ground in English football. It's hosted, welcome to the semi-final. It's countless league titles. It's iconic moments. Dixie's 60th goal. It's a massively important football institution that means the world to this set of fans. Let them have what they want, but modern football doesn't care.
They don't like us anyway, do they? So
don't like us anyway. It's all about telly, and it's all about kind of international views. But it's a good example of where you're thinking, just let them have it.
That's what would have been my thought. We're playing at 12. We're not interfering with any other game. The game will be finished by the time the rest of them kick off.
Yeah.
Why not move it all to YouTube? Haven't they got a YouTube channel? Push it onto there.
Yeah.
It's
a very kind of they're not really getting that how much it means for Evertonians, I guess. But then mean about they care about figures and kind of create a day of football events. They don't care about kind of
it's this and it's all that.
It is all that, and that's kind of that's why we're moving, isn't it? It's not just about emotion. It's about money. You wouldn't be moving to Bramley Moore Dock if it was just about emotion. It's kind of hard financial decision that makes sense, and that's kind of that's where football is, isn't it?
Yeah, but yes, that's the way it's gone. That's where everyone's gone, really, isn't it? To the end of the day,
pretty much. Yeah, you're thinking you can, we are abandoning our kind of our home for the bottom line to kind of so we can compete.
Soon we'll be getting the American adverts with chocolates on them, like Snickers presents VAR or something like that.
Probably, yeah. God knows what it'll be called.
Gatorade, something like that.
Yeah, Gatorade Arena or the Toyota It's that's I mean, we can call it what we want, can't we? It'll always probably be Bramley Moore Dock, but it's that's kind of that's it's definitely going to be a more corporate experience, I think.
Yeah, I think that as long as we all, like us fans, remain hostile and joyful and the way we've always been, then I'll be happy. I don't want to go there and it being robotic. I know that Everton fans, and I know we would never be like that, but you do look in fear for the future of how
Yeah, I think Everton always different. I think I can't see us being like Anfield or I think it's it doesn't hold enough and enough losing there. I think it'll always be like a cousin of hate.
Well, yeah, I know. Right, as I wrap this up, Jim, do you want to plug anything? Do you want to say your socials so where all the fans of this show can come find you if they've not already found you?
Well, you've covered on my book, so that's great. And I'm on Twitter at Jim Keoghan. That's me. Yeah, find us there. I'm always on there more.
Okay. Again, I appreciate you coming on. And it's good to chat about Everton. Obviously with myself and Stuart with this show, we aren't predominantly Everton. We chose to do that. We chose to, cover everything because we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves. But obviously, as I said at the beginning of the show, it's an important week that we want to dedicate everything to the club that that we love.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, great thoughts. Cheers.
Yeah. But thank you very much, Jim. Hopefully we'll get you on and you can join the show on a different note about Everton. We can have something else to talk about. One of the many things, the topics that we bring up.
No worries. Anytime.
Thank you very much. Again, thanks to Jim. Me and Stuart will be back on Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. Yeah, we'll be back on Wednesday, I assume. You'll find out somewhere. We'll post something. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll be obviously going through, again, we'll be talking about Goodison. We've got a few videos and pictures that we took when we were at the Goodison tour, so we're going to bang them in. And that's about it, really. And then we go on to the last game on Sunday, and then I'm sure me and Stuart will be back again the following week with our thoughts, and I'm sure Jim will give you his thoughts on Twitter, because we don't call it X here. But everyone who's watch this live or will listen to this in audio form once I get through all that in a bit. Thank you very much for listening to me and Jim whittle on about the best club in the world. Thank you very much.
Football then and now, a fun look at football nostalgia and the modern game intertwined. Join us.